We discussed with Howie regarding the minutes. He has not been sending them over. We assume that he's sending them to Cheryl, and at least that's what I assumed, because I used to do that.
Yeah.
He has not been doing that. And Susan
Well, I'll be
asked
glad
for a request, and I don't have a problem with that. We have an issue, you don't see a problem with the minutes of our subcommittee?
No.
Oh,
So they'll go next door and they'll be distributed to
I
whoever
know,
else.
I've assumed it was done, so
Yeah.
we hope it.
Yeah, my understanding was that we were just, in the past, we were distributing directly to the chairman. And then they started going through the office first, from kind of how we discussed it last time. Point is release them. And then when we meet, we'll approve our minutes.
I'll just mark them draft until they're approved and mark them.
Fantastic, thank you. For the time sheet, we did that too.
What's that for?
I guess I got some business office, that's for my last one.
Yeah, you're not getting money for that. We don't have any.
Okay. I'll take care of that.
We're not even going to be able to pay us to, as soon as I figure out where we stand on that, because I don't know. But I think we have enough for 3 meetings.
I think that's what you told me. I was gonna give Lena a moment, she spent a lot of time going back and forth through these gentlemen last night, and then we had yesterday, and we have Steve Hamilton coming for 9:30.
So as soon as you get
What's his title?
He's head of the,
DRA?
no, he's head of the municipal branch in at DRA.
Commissioner John Green.
You sorted all this out so that you could find this.
I'm assuming the request as it sits right now is still the same MS 42 as
Yes, we are.
where we were the other day.
See where it shows the individual town's tax rate?
Oh, like $1.15,
Yeah.
$1.25?
Yeah.
Want to run over and see if I have it? No, I'm not sure if Kathy might have done it.
Okay.
Is that tax rate with or without supplemental budget?
No, that's the without.
With that? Okay.
But you want to put the supplement?
Yeah.
Again, Susan might have
Can
it.
I,
Oh.
I'm sorry, I may not have it,
No.
but I was just offering to
That
run
makes sense.
something somewhere for you.
No, it's okay, because I have to explain it to Kathy.
Okay,
Yeah, no, we don't have it.
okay.
What we had was up to, I think it was 2 million, but we didn't have the 2.6.
Oh, I actually may have that, but I was really just offering to run the errand.
But that has not been provided.
You're hooked up to the resident network.
We don't want to go on to it. Took some special programming to make that possible.
I have secret clearance.
There is no password, so you should just be able to.
Ed
Yes.
and Mark. We have 2 outstanding requests. And we need to come to a decision on those 2.
It would take me a minute to pull them up.
Because, come on in, Steve.
Can we do that at the end of the meeting?
Yep, that's fine, but we can't. Hi, Kate. There are a couple of chairs, one here and one there. We can't, we need to make that decision.
You know, part of the plotted plan, potted plan.
Okay, there's a chair right here. How was your drive? Lovely morning. Oh, we had fog up here, a lot of fog.
Yeah. And the windshield wipers on for the first half of the trip.
Well, I didn't have to turn the windshield wipers on, but it was foggy.
The two documents we have to discuss, the transfers. Can we discuss that now, or wait till we're done here?
No,
Okay. All right.
we'll wait.
All right,
until-
we have Steve and Kate here now, so we'll get started, and then Lena will join us, so.
We'll do this after.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, stay for that. Thank you for coming and attending with us again. Our subcommittee met last Friday, and we were presented with documentation that the administrator and the administrator and the treasurer had worked together and trying to pull together the numbers that they were believing needed to be brought forward for the supplemental budget that we're going to be discussing today. When the nursing home subcommittee reviewed the assumptions, I know we just started. When we reviewed this document, the first time we had seen this document was when we were sitting here on Friday. They had, and Lena or Ed or Bill, correct me if I'm incorrect here, they had used last year's income as the basis for coming up with this formula of where they might be at the end of this year at the nursing home. And last year, there were a couple of issues that happened in the nursing home. We never met our skilled care estimates that we had put. And there was an accounting switchover, a software changeover last year that prevented the business office or Howard's business people from seeing the turn down in skilled care until it came to the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter, then it showed that they lost $800,000, which was not indeed what happened. And then to the other point that we had said was we had a goal of, let's say, $100,000 in skilled care, but there's no expense that goes against that if it's not done, because we have no employees that are there. So where we didn't meet that goal, we also didn't have to pay anything for missing that goal. So our committee was uneasy approving what was given to us and having to come up with a downgrade of the revenue projection by $1.1 million plus or minus. Because when you've averaged in the expenses against that, those two numbers don't correlate to each other. And what's happening this year, Howard and his people have been very diligent on keeping their expenses down. And after 7 months, they're only 1%, less than $200,000 upside down when you look at income to expenses. The feeling was Friday, and Howard, if you know different now, that August was going to look probably similar to July's numbers. In June, we were trending about 1.1% behind when you look income to expenses. August, or in June, in July, that gap had been close to 1%, and it looks like August was holding, and we as a subcommittee didn't feel it was right to say that we're going to lose now $800,000 more in the next 4 months. And so we didn't think it was appropriate. We didn't have a right number at that time. We didn't think it was appropriate to be raising $1 million for the nursing home for that reason. That's where we got to. And when I asked the question at least 2 or 3 times, who came up with the projection, I was informed, at least on 2 occasions, that DRA was in support of this. This MS-42 was DRA's product with their help.
So let me correct that right off the bat. The DRA has never put forward a number. The numbers that you've been presented with have come from your accountant and from your administrator. We've received a copy of the revised MS-42 that your professionals are seeking to provide to us. The DRA has not approved, has not drafted, has not calculated any of these numbers for you. This is the county's business to do. And I just want to make sure that that's very clear.
I fully understood that, but I was looking for you to confirm what I said, because that was not what we were being presented with on that
The
day.
only edit made was the fact that the contingency amount was over the legal limit. So
Right.
it's at $750,000, had to go somewhere else.
Right.
So we could put in other expenditures, but that was definitely.
And that's the kind of a disallowance of an appropriation that we would make for any municipal or governmental agency that has that kind of a statutory limitation. You just can't appropriate more in that line than the statute allows.
So what we were looking at is if we were $200,000 in a loss at this point in time, if we projected that out, that was in the $500,000 or $600,000. If the trend continued and got a little worse, and we were, as a delegation and as a subcommittee, on the impression we had set aside $560,000, which is some of that money that's been reappropriated, and we figured we were at a break-even point. So we didn't think that we should have to raise that money. Lino spent a lot of time, I'm going to call it shuttle diplomacy, over here yesterday, speaking with Howard so we could get a better understanding today. Do you want to say anything?
You hit it right on the head. You're spot on.
The only thing that I would caution is that we do have a $500,000 hole that we have to fill. That's off the MS-45. It was 500 and whatever it was.
It was 595
Okay. So 600,000 for the nursing home.
for last year.
Yeah, that needs to be filled. And that's what the million, whatever it is, on that other line is there to fill. So it's basically 1.5 is our, or 1.6 is our deficit that we need to make up. Okay, and then
She's making it up now.
okay. Okay, so when you talk about a reduction of 1.1, is that the?
The revenue was downshifted 1.1 and asking for us to raise taxes for that. So my point is, and this was the rub to myself, and I think to others also, that this document has been used. Let me start out by saying I want to get through today, and we're going to make the county whole to a point that we are going to, in my opinion, we're going to get us to zero at least. We're going to take care of the overspending that happened last year. And we've got a new administrator in place, which I say again and again, very pleased with his professional attitude and what he's doing. And I'm hoping that with new personnel, the head of the new finance director, that we can then start with confidence that we know what the numbers are and we can move forward. What I don't want to do is continue to proliferate that we overestimated revenues as the nursing home subcommittee, and that's the reason we're in this hole. That's not the reason we're in this hole. And I won't stand to hear anybody say that ever again going forward. There were monies that were overspent last year, how we came up with our projection for this budget, because the county did not have any numbers available for us, real numbers, when we went through this process. We didn't rely on simply 1 year's numbers before for our forecast. We went 2 years back. And we had put things in practice to start building skilled care. We didn't meet those objectives, but we worked with the numbers that the county gave us. We have worked diligently as a group together to look at where to try and keep those numbers when they were calling as close as we can. And Howard and his group have worked beyond belief to keep track of those things and to keep us in the range. So I'm willing to go through this day, and I'm willing to be in agreement once we get to a real number. But I want the blame to stop coming away from this subcommittee, because I think we have worked extremely diligent, and we have put in more time than I think anyone ever thought that this subcommittee would have to do, because we had to carry the lion's share of finding numbers and making numbers. So, yes.
I've never seen a subcommittee work so hard as this nursing home subcommittee. I just want to say that, because out of my 13 years experience with other counties, it's just once every 6 months.
Yes, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. As you know, I supported the budget that came out of this subcommittee, and that includes the revenues. I also recall that it was not the revenue projected by the administration here, and they cautioned us against being as encouraging and positive as we were on the revenues. I believe that what we projected is possible, but it's only possible, I think, in the ideal environment. And obviously, according to the administrator, the ability to get skilled people with skilled care needs is harder than it used to be. And so that is at least a significant part of why our revenues are not going to achieve what we projected. But I still stand behind what we did, and as you said, this budget is doing quite well. At the same time, the budget revenues that are projected at 10,338 seem to be low to me, and I think that if it were possible for us to increase those a little bit, I still think that it would be met according to this 6-month projection. And I still think that in terms of my explorations over the past week, that we would still be able to, the treasurer would still be able to defend it at the bank. So you say an accurate budget. What is it that you're meaning? How do you want to proceed?
Well, I think the way we left Friday was that we were going to seek some counsel from the revenue administration, which we have, and that we were going to see if we came up with a number that was going to be less than 1.1 million by adjusting the revenue up as opposed to where they have it down by $1.1 million. And my understanding is that's what we were going to try and come to grips with this round. And
so I would propose that we could, and I don't know where it needs to be on the MS-42, but that we could increase the nursing home revenue by $200,000, which would then reduce taxes and still achieve what we need to, which is to make the county whole and likely still have breathing room at the end of the year.
Leno, Bill, any thoughts to that?
Second for
Okay.
having on the floor.
If we do that, then they have to shift around numbers where they are with the MS-42 at this point in time.
we just have to change one number.
What number?
So you're looking at having $200,000 plus in revenue, so you're not doing 2.6, you're doing 2.4. Is that going to meet your cash flow projections?
Currently, my cash flow projection is at 2.5. So, it's 2.587.
2.6, that's what you're looking at.
2.587.
So if you reduce that, as you're, excuse me if I'm speaking out of turn, but if you reduce that amount, he's going to be short on the cash flow projections, so you can't just change one number if you want to make that 2.6 number. You'll have to change the revenue, as well as you'll have to change the appropriation by the same amount to get that same watermark. That's your decision to do so, but I'm just saying that was the original, what we went into with after the last meeting that I was here at. That's what you what you should consider.
Thank you, Katie. If we made that adjustment, are we then are still permitting the cash flow that the administrator thinks he needs, or we're shortchanging of 200,000?
That's the question. If you actually reduce your appropriations by the 200,000, raise your appropriations by 200,000, then you're at the same watermark, 2.6.
Where we are right now.
Right. And then the question has to be made, it can't be made on this MS-42 because going into the meeting today, your MS-42 is fixed. This is what you notice, people, and this is the amount that you're doing. You'd have to make an amendment at the meeting. So going in. So.
Would amendment before the meeting?
Nope. During the meeting.
During the meeting.
And you have to, probably somebody from the committee to take that amendment.
And so, go to the appropriations page. Is this where you're saying that this would have to be raised?
If you want, and like I said, it's
page
your
3.
decision as a body, it's not my decision, but if you want to maintain this from a technical advice point of view, if you want to maintain that $2.6 million of revenue coming into the county to meet your cash flow expectations, you're going to have to raise that deficit reduction by another 200,000.
What line are we on?
4199 is your deficit reduction, and that's
Page 2.
That's
Okay.
the number that you had all been looking at as where you wanted to put the appropriations. Like I said, it's your decision, but that's where everything is kind of in place so far.
So you would raise the other expenditures by 200,000.
So yeah, it'd be 1298112,
Okay.
and then you would reduce.
You would reduce.
County nursing home would be reduced by $200,000. Sources of revenue.
Which is 3404.
3404, so it'd be 10,138,679. And like I said, that's just how you maintain that balance. It's up to you.
That would, okay, so that would be 10,138.
Yes,
And that still leaves us at the 2.6.
correct. It's just how you want it to flow through the budget.
Which line, what page are you on with that?
And we would need to do that in order to manage the cash flow requirements that the administrator has defined.
That's if you want, you have, this MS-42 reflects a $2.6 million additional appropriation in property taxes, which is what his cash flow projections in your last meeting.
Right, and if in this meeting we determined that a 2.4 overall appropriation is possible,
That is your decision.
and if that 2.4 is possible, then my thought is that we're able to increase the revenue line in the nursing home, but is that wrong in terms of achieving that 2.4?
It won't help his revenues. Because by doing it through the appropriations section, I mean, you still need to appropriate the amount of money he needs to appropriate. Now, if you decide that he doesn't need 2.6, that's your decision.
Understood.
And however, by just reducing this is not going to increase is not gonna give him, it's gonna give him 2.4 to deal with.
Right.
Yeah.
But if we wanted to achieve that 2.4, is raising, no, not raising revenues, you'd have to
Reducing
reducing the appropriation.
Or actually, raising revenues will have the same effect. So you're raising the if you raise this revenue, this revenue has been reduced. So you'd be raising this revenue, so you'd be reducing it again another $200,000. That would bring you to a 2.4 watermark level of appropriation.
So can you tell me what line you're talking about?
Well, if you're looking at county nursing home, it's 3404. That's your zip code.
So that'd be 10,138,000 as opposed to 10,338.
Correct. And then that would affect your bottom line.
And without affecting the 1 million line in 99, if that county nursing home revenue is reduced, then you reduce the overall tax burden.
Correct. So you're looking at a 2.4.
I want to make sure that it's clear, we're not recommending that.
No,
Absolutely.
no.
We would
That's just how you get
caution,
to-
we would caution directly that your lender may be very interested in making sure that they understand what that total net appropriation will be.
Of course.
And they've been made aware that it's going to be 2.6 million. If it's something other than that, that may change their decision on how they're going to move forward. I just want to put that word of caution out there for you. This isn't for us to approve. This is for you to determine. But there can be consequences in terms of what comfort your lender has.
But just to follow up, in what the subcommittee is proposing right now, is that we would raise $200,000 on page 2 from 1098. I'm going to leave the 112 behind. We're suggesting that gets raised to 1298112. And then on page 9, we are adjusting the county farm, the county nursing home. Geez, shouldn't it say public works there?
Yeah.
It's page 7.
Nursing home line, which presently is shown as 10,338,659. We would lower that down to the corresponding number, which would be 10,138,679. The bottom line is that we still have the 2.6 million that you're speaking about.
That would not change the bottom line of 2.6 million.
Correct.
But making one of those changes would change that bottom line.
Correct, without doing that.
Right.
And if I could.
Yeah, I'll come back to it. Go ahead, finish up.
Thank you. So, Ken, I'm sorry to not have discussed this with you before this meeting, but it's my understanding that it is possible and defensible to lower the amount to be raised by taxes, which is, I think, the goal of the delegation and this subcommittee. And so I think it is ideal if we can find a way to do that. What we're talking about doing in terms of balancing revenues and expenses isn't going to change that amount to be raised, and so I think is unnecessary if we're going to stay with 2.6. And so.
Okay.
I just want to be clear what the 2.6 is for. It's to replace the deficit that we had from last year and to increase cash flow for this year.
The 1.6 plus the 567, which brings us up to 2 million. And then the 600,000 is basically cash.
So,
I mean, although it's,
Well, it replaces what they used for last year, so that's going to free up some more. Thank you.
so let's go back to discussion. What the original proposal was to downshift was to move down the projection of the anticipated loss from $1.1 million by $200,000. And then what we did in the MS 42 was to make it neutral because we raised that amount of money somewhere else so that we came back to zero. Now, if I understand Representative Butler's, back to the informal today, Representative Butler's point after we've gone through that exercise is, why are we doing it? Because it's just created, we're just back to the same number. So is it our pleasure to make that change and do that? It seems to me that you would still be able to operate with your cash flow, or are we hindering your cash flow projection that you have by doing that?
But by reducing it 200,000,
And then giving it back in another place, so we're at the same bottom line number.
I would prefer not to, but, you know, I guess I would have to make it work. That's all I can say.
Okay, I'm like, Lena, do you want to weigh in on this, or are we gonna, the vote's gonna be whether we're gonna do this now or not do this, and let it sit. And that's where we are.
Well, we have a timeline we have to meet, right?
The timeline?
Timeline.
Today,
Yes.
10 o'clock.
So, I would want to see the completed changes before we would vote on it. So everybody has a clear understanding of what we have in front of
Yeah, the
us.
MS 42 would not be generated, it's already generated for this meeting that's coming up at 10 o'clock.
You have to
So
amend.
you're basically proposing to do an amendment, to
We're
request an
amending it.
amendment,
Okay.
yes.
Can we get the amended copy? So we,
Well, I think, Lena, to be clear here, we're changing two items.
I know,
And if we propose that, then before the meeting's out today, if we propose this, then that MS 42 is going to need to be generated. You'll have the documentation that you're looking for. So then the question for us is, I believe what Representative Butler proposed is what our subcommittee was trying to get to last Friday. Now the question is whether it's worth the exercise to get there.
And if I could,
Yes.
thank you. My proposal and what Representative Nelson seconded was only the revenue line. And I would like to vote on that, and then if we need to make the corresponding adjustment, so be it.
Thank you. Okay, you're right.
But I still don't understand, so I need more help. What this projection that we got last week shows is that the revenues for the nursing home should exceed this 10,340. And obviously we know we're looking to have a surplus and a cushion at the end of the year, and that we need that, and that we're paying off past problems as well. But if it is possible, and I guess that discussion needs to happen in the full committee meeting, to have a $2.4 million total to be raised by taxes, then do we raise this county nursing home revenue by $200,000 as opposed to decrease it? 3404.
Yes, you made that change.
Okay, so that,
That's the decision you're making.
all right, so that's my proposal, and that's what I have suggested, and which I would like to have a vote on. And I totally understand if we want to keep it at 2.6, and I understand that the administrator believes that that is necessary.
Okay, so let's go. So we're proposing a change different than what I started out as. So let's go to where you would be increasing the revenue.
10.3 to 10.5.
Exactly.
On what page?
77.
Line 3404.
So we are looking at raising the revenue on county nursing home 3404 from 10,338,679 to 10,538. How does everyone feel about that? You know? Bill? I like that idea. I like that idea. Nina, are you with us?
I think it's attainable. Given the current numbers that we have from the nursing home.
And thank you, Ed, that's really where we were heading with it, because they had cut our revenue, they had set our revenue projection so bad. And I think our feeling is that $200,000 is really conservative.
Absolutely.
Really conservative. We know that number, we feel that number is going to be a higher number. All right, so let's as a subcommittee, any more discussion on that point? Yes?
Do we have to offset it in the other one then?
Not if we want to
you
reduce
want-
the amount to be raised by taxes.
They're looking, this will give you 2.4 million. If you want 2.6, yes, you need to offset.
Okay, so as I understand the revised motion right now is to raise 3404 county nursing home from the present proposed 10,338,679 to be 10,538,679, a raise of $200,000.
And then that changes with the charge for services so far.
Correct.
Which is the number on the bottom of that page.
In that section.
Okay, so that would change that then to,
And also on page 8,
so the new number there would be 11,748. 633. And where's the next change?
page 8.
Estimated subtotal. Estimated on.
At the bottom of the
Bottom
Yeah,
says-
yeah, yeah.
And so this becomes 11,845,635. Doesn't that? It's 11,845,635.
Right.
Into the previous
And then
number.
on page 8 also.
11,645. So
Okay, I see.
we had two, so
Right.
we're just carrying our numbers straight down the sheet. And where else does that?
Page 8 also,
Page 8.
Page 8.
estimated revenue.
Estimated revenue subtotal? No, or, yeah,
Yep.
that would move up 200,000.
11,845.
11,845,635.
And then down 11,640. So then you get total estimated revenues?
So now we're going to go to 11,800.
8, yes.
11,800. Same number, right?
And then this would go to 17,623.
17,623,774.
Right.
Okay, so we raised our revenue and the amount of money that we need to raise, we'd lower the tax burden by $200,000. That's essentially what we're doing. All right, did subcommittee follow where we went, how that happened? So, morning, Rick.
It is more.
So, we're ready to vote on that.
Could I, as a formality,
Please.
you had said that you adjusted this, so I'd like to say, whatever we have to do technically, that I would agree with that.
Thank you.
Okay. So we had a new motion for that change, seconded, was accepted by the person, Mr. Nelson. So let's vote on that as the subcommittee. All those in favor of those changes that we just went through, which would then require, during the hearing, that we amend our MS 42 to reflect this. as a subcommittee, do you support this change? All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Our work is done.
Okay. So, well, let me get the procedural thing started here correctly. Our public hearing is for 2.6, okay? Then I call on somebody.
If somebody wants to, if we have a call for the vote, if anybody then would have an amendment, somebody would call, somebody would volunteer an amendment.
Okay, to the 2.6.
Which will now be.
I'm going to go into discussion.
Right.
Okay.
I would also plan to bring forward an amendment. What I would like to do is reduce the, not a total reduction in the appropriations, but reflect the $139,000 voted on by the commissioners on the individual line items, and raise line 4199 other expenditures by that same $139,400, and target that to begin a forensic audit.
Where is that, where do you want to change that line?
I've got copies here.
Can we do
for-
that? Okay.
Sure. So the, basically, the individual lines for the appropriations, such as county attorney, et cetera, would all reflect the voted on reduction in appropriations from the commissioners, and it would increase line 4199, other expenditures, by the same 139,400. So there would be no net effect to page 5. The total appropriations voted would still remain the 29,469,409. No change to the bottom line appropriations. And I'd be glad to pass out copies of that now.
That would be helpful. I'm not, at this point, I would say only that if we are planning to do some sort of forensic audit, that we need to get through the 14 audit, and we need to give the administrator and the new financial person an opportunity in the next 3 months to try to get our books straightened out. And if we still feel that we need to have the forensic audit, then I would prefer that that occur in 16, along in companionship with the audit for 15. Because we are finally, I think, hopefully catching up on all of our audits. And so now we should be able to move forward with an audit, the MS 45 that needs to be prepared prior to 1 March. And that in that area is when I think that that should take place, and not, because we're not at a point in time, if that's the right thing, to know where we stand. And so that's my thought process on this, that I would much rather have that in conjunction with the audit, so that we can press forward on that as a group, if in fact we want to do a forensic audit.
Fine.
Thank you. My thought is that there is no doubt in my mind that we need a forensic audit. There's too much that has gone on. Just last week we heard that the bond money was spent to keep the county running. So I think without question, we need a forensic audit. And I think the sooner we started, the better. Even if we started the end of September, October, there's a whole process of writing the RFP, going out with an RFP. It's going to take a couple of months. My expectation would be by the time we actually hire someone to do the forensic audit, we probably will have the 2014 audit done and available. If we don't do that now as part of this supplemental budget, it'll be next spring, next May or June, before we are able to start a forensic audit. And I think that, in my mind, that's not acceptable to me.
If I walked out of the room for a moment, so your proposal to add in money for the forensic audit is for how much money?
$139,400, which is the amount of cuts to appropriations voted on by the commissioners.
Any other
And,
change?
No, it's the individual line items that have been reduced by the appropriate amount per the voted on cuts to appropriations. And line 4199, you'll see is increased by the 139,400, so there is no change to the net appropriations.
So if I understand, and I'm of the camp that a forensic audit is necessary now as opposed to later. I haven't listened to your presentation here. I know that if we don't put money in right now to handle this, then next year the cry is going to be we can't spend any more money than we need to at the next budget cycle. So I'm going to listen with interest to what you have to say.
Thank you.
I don't think the subcommittee is going to make any ruling.
Yeah, I'm not asking, I just wanted you to be aware of it since you were talking about amendments.
If there's one thing that's more certain than anything, the bookkeeping's got to be brought in line, which we're in the process of doing, but there is no energy whatsoever to go back and try and find out what went wrong. Our state officials aren't demanding it, the Attorney General's office isn't demanding it, but I personally believe our people are going to demand it. So I will listen intently to that. Ed, did you have something to say?
Yes, Representative Umberger said 3 months. Ken, do you feel 3 months is enough time for you to fish through everything you've seen so far to give some type of correction to this? So I agree with Representative Cordelli that we need to start now and use the 3 months to get it set up. Because the public wants a forensic audit.
I understand that, and I think we should find out what happened to everything. What I don't want to do is jump the gun before all our audits even done. We don't even know where we're standing as of this moment.
Right.
And yes, we do need to find out, but we need to get past this first. And people want to know, and I understand they want to know. I want to know, but I can't find out because I'm getting blocked here and there. So we need to get through this next month or two. When the 14 audit's done, maybe look and see where we are. And then maybe put out the 15 audit along with the forensic audit if that's what you think we should do at the same time. That way we can roll it in. Maybe the forensic audit is the same one that does the 15 audit, I don't know. And what's the cost of a forensic audit? Does anybody even know that?
When I first, I'm thinking the 139,400 might be a down payment for it. When I first met with Mr. Hamilton and Commissioner Breedmore this spring, and they were talking about bringing in someone to do an audit, the commissioner had thrown out a number of $200,000 possibly. So, until we issue an RFP and get responses back, I don't think we know what the real number would be. But 139 would get us started, and then we could make a supplemental appropriation in 2016 because we will have the estimates back.
Okay. I understand what you're doing.
Can we incorporate these budget cuts in the MS 42?
Not until they've been voted on at the meeting, you would actually do them as amendments. So
Okay.
The commissioners have voted on those cuts already.
Or I mean, these cuts, the ones that you've already done,
Yes.
those ones are already reflected, the ones that you said, and then you're just putting them back in. That would have to be an amendment that you.
Yes, I would.
Correct.
Yes.
So I would suggest that we handle, allow Karen to bring up, and I will answer, or whomever she answers, about the nursing home and that change. That will be amendment number 1.
And then I'll be amendment
One
number
off
2.
of that, because that has nothing to do with this subcommittee. Yes.
I know we have to get out of here. Len, would you accept some type of trigger that would put this into action? Instead of saying now, if something happens, then it kicks into gear.
I think it's already been told.
It's already been pulled.
In my mind, it was pulled last week when it was stated that the nursing home bond money had been spent.
To keep the county running.
And my understanding is until the end of this audit, we won't know what happened to that money or where
Right,
where it
because
is.
the administrator has already said he doesn't know.
I just want to make sure
We'll
that,
find out.
Right.
everybody, I just want to make sure that we have a clear definition on this, that we're using $1.4, $1.5 million for deficit reduction, and that we're improving close to $1 million for cash flow for the rest of the year. I just want to make sure that that is what the money is going to be used for.
That's my understanding of what it is we're doing.
And you can ask for a clarification.
We need to be real
Ask for
clear.
clarification right on the thing, right during the meeting.
I'm just not sure, if, you know, I mean, that 1.4, right, and that does help cash flow.
It's after 10.
Thank you all for taking the time to be here.